Hi, good morning, I'm Elaine, and I'm the Bishop of the Cross-Denominational Mission. Well, this morning I didn't want to get out of bed at all because I felt really fed up and let down by people, actually, and depressed. So I thought, Lord, what shall I do? And he said, share your testimony to praise me. And I thought, right, I will do. So anyway, when I was the age of 15, my father had passed away when I was 11. Sorry. And one day you have a father and the next day you don't. And it was a huge thing in my mum's life too. One minute she had a husband, and my sister the same as me. One day you have a father and the next you don't. I was always bullied at school for being too fat. I wasn't bullied in the sense of being pasty, but they used to get me on the wall and thump me in the stomach. And I remember one day my mum came to the rescue. So when I went to secondary school, I was always bullied and sometimes sexually abused by young boys, as they do. And so I wasn't a very happy person. And my neighbour also lost his mother, and he wasn't very happy, to tell you the truth. He never spoke very much. He was always very quiet. And one day he came knocking at the door, and I opened the door and it was my neighbour. He'd just come back from university, and it was a time when, if you remember the Jesus Revolution in the 76, and there's been a film with Jonathan Roumie about the Jesus Revolution. And my neighbour had gone to the Christian Union and discovered Jesus. They were praying and talking, and so he gave his life to the Lord and explaining all about Jesus and how he died for me on the cross and all this kind of stuff. And I wanted what he had, not just because he shared about Jesus, but Jesus had changed his life. He had light in his life and in his eyes, because the eyes are the windows of your soul. And I wanted what he had because he was a very different person. He was very bubbly, very alive, went to church, and so I must have gone through the sinner's prayer because he must have told me. But that Sunday, God had told me, I heard the voice of God saying to go to the Salvation Army in Leicester, the Leicester Castle Corps, which I did. And I saw this guy who was a leading of the youth, and I said, I've come to be saved. So anyway, that evening, after I'd spent time with a fellowship group, and I think they was quite surprised I'd actually said that I wanted to give my life to Jesus. So I heard Major Stevens from the Salvation Army giving his testimony about how he'd been a homeless guy and somebody preached the gospel, he came to Christ, his life changed, and now he's the leader of the Leicester Castle Corps. He's a major. And at that point it really resonated in my heart about the lost, the poor, the broken and the needy, and about evangelism. And I got myself a Salvation Army uniform. I worked in a restaurant where people, a catering company in fact, and we used to go and do silver service, things like Christmas, anniversaries, all this kind of thing. And I saved up enough to get the Salvation Army uniform, which was well over £100. And so at the time, in the 1970s, it was, a lot of money. So anyway, I joined the Salvation Army, but it really didn't do anything for me spiritually, because they really wanted to go round singing in the Castle Corps songsters, but I wanted to go out preaching the gospel. They also didn't have communion, And communion is key. Even if you're an alcoholic, you can still have cordial and water with some bread for communion, because that is one of the most important things for anybody, really, is to do this in remembrance of Christ, is the communion, that his blood was shed and his body was broken. I didn't have a very good family life. I won't go into all that, but I left home when I was about 17 and went to the Torch Trust for the Blind and volunteered. And at that time, I became anorexic. I was on a diet. I ended up in a few months from being a size 22 down to a size 6. And I had a lot of issues because of being bullied and various things. But anyway, the Lord healed me. I went to see some friends at Worlow Grange, and Colin Urquhart, who then became the leader, although he sadly passed away, of Kingdom Faith, and he prayed for me, and that broke the power of anorexia over me. So anyway, I went then to move to Northern Ireland, thinking I could bring peace and reconciliation to Northern Ireland to stop the Catholics and the Protestants from trying to kill each other and destroy Northern Ireland. But after 2 weeks, when I was working in the Salvation Army children's home, I left because I didn't have any experience of life. I didn't know what I was doing, really. I was only about 17. And then I married a police officer, and we were married just for a few years. I married too young, really, and I hadn't lived in that culture at all, Catholics and Protestants and, all this kind of thing. I didn't really understand any of it. And I was quite alone, and I had a child, and I must have had some kind of baby blues, and I didn't have any family there, and I was in a multi-storey flat. So he joined the army, the military police, and I went back to England. And I remember standing outside the Leicester Tigers ground in Leicester and saying, in the rugby ground that is, saying that I didn't want to be a Christian anymore because I couldn't be this squeaky clean person, and I was quite rebellious and living a life that wasn't pleasing to God, and I was a backslider. Anyway, I had a child and nearly died, another child and nearly died, and so did he. And I lived with a man for nearly 19 years, and we had an antique shop. And problem is, when you've been a Christian, I think it's worse because you've known God and you've become rebellious. He died for you on the cross and saved you. But I hated Christians. I thought they were all hypocrites, when really it was my fault. But I didn't understand salvation. I'd been baptised in the Spirit, I'd been baptised in water, but when I became a Christian, I really didn't understand salvation. And so I ended up living in a very volatile relationship with my partner. Not all the time, but some of the time, because he was a lot older than me, and we came from different generations, and of course I had 2 children. And I was immoral, trying to fill my life with love, but I was looking in the wrong places. And, drinking too much, not all day, but when the children were asleep and we just had whiskey and vodka and whatever. And my whole life was a complete mess, and I had mental breakdowns, I do believe, because it wasn't the life that I wanted to live. So when I had to go and get a job and get some money, I realised I didn't want to live this life anymore. I didn't want to be being involved with alcohol and fights. It wasn't always like that, because he went away on holiday, we had good times, I learnt a trade, but we didn't really have anything in common. And so I went to work in a Christian bookshop, and all around me was the verse, even though your mother may forsake you, I will never forsake you, because I've written your name on the palm of my hand. And there was a song, I'll never know how much it cost to see my sin upon thy cross. So I decided I wanted to give my life back to the Lord, and I did. And it wasn't a Damascus Road experience, it was a journey and a process. It was a gradual thing, and the Lord had to work things out with me. I had to leave my partner after 2 years, because I'd either have to marry him or leave him. I didn't want to marry him because I didn't want to continue down that road of domestic violence, drinking, because I'd already stopped drinking like that. I might have had a glass of wine, but I wasn't drinking vodka and stuff like that. I didn't want to live a life like that. I didn't want to live a life like that at all. And I met Nigel, who had muscular dystrophy, and he became a Christian, and we were married because I left my partner, and I married Nigel, and we had this thingy on a deprived estate. It was a bit like in Salford, where they used to have Salt and Light with Christians, being in a very dark place with Redeeming Our Community. And so my life completely changed again, because I knew what salvation meant. Salvation means that it was God who forgives you. We cannot earn salvation. We can't buy it. We can't do good. It's what Jesus does in us and through us. We can't save ourselves, and it took me 20 years to understand that, to be honest. And the Lord is an amazing God. He really changed me, and he used these bad times in my life to help other people and understand where they're coming from. But the biggest thing for me was when Nigel passed away after 5 years on this deprived estate, and people began to change and the community began to change, and we worked with the police and the church and the council, and had street parties of life transformation with people that had been in prison and come to Christ, because I wanted to let them hear how Jesus changes lives. So when Nigel passed away, I went to Southampton then, at Hayling Island, in fact, where the Lord wanted me to be, to renew my foundations. And I had to get a job after 6 months. And I prayed in Langley House Gardens in Elderfield. I prayed, Lord, is this all you have for my life? Imagine. And 2 weeks later, Canon Andrew White, the vicar of Baghdad, wanted me to ring him up because he had a job for me to do. God had said I was to look after Mr. Ralph, the judge who sentenced Saddam Hussein and his wife and family while they were in hospital. And I thought it was a wind-up, but it wasn't. It was true. So I looked after them with Brian the squirrel. Brian also had an antique shop in Portsmouth, so we had a bit in common. And we helped Mr. Ralph. I used to go and pray with him with an interpreter, and his operation was successful, as was his wife. I went to the this intercessory worship prophetic warrior bride conference in West End in Southampton, and I took the scarf which this lady Hamida had given me, put it on the cross and put the Israeli flag on the top. I didn't know what I was doing, but actually Israel and the Kurds have got something in common because of the genocide that they had. So the Lord has really helped me, and I've been to Kenya, I've been to Baghdad, I've been to Halabja and prayed over the land. God has done so much. But I know now, you see, I was filling my void with sex, with alcohol, trying to fill the place where Jesus should be. And you can't. You have to fill the void in your life with Jesus. And I haven't been a wonderful Christian, I haven't always been faithful, but Jesus has always left the 99 to go looking for me when I've fallen. And the Lord knows how you feel. The Lord knows how you feel. He understands the pain that you go through. He understands all these things. But the main thing is I want to tell you that the Lord loves you and values your life, and he's coming back so soon for his bride, which is the believers, to take away while we have 7 years of the tribulation, and then Jesus will return with us and rule and reign in Jerusalem while Satan is bound for 1,000 years. It all sounds parson pie to many people, you know, it's all gobbledygook, but it's not. It says in the Bible we don't serve flesh and blood, but powers of darkness and principalities, and to put on the full armour of God. You see, there is another world, not just this world, but there's a spiritual world where there is demons and angels. Angels are fighting the demons at the moment. We're in a battle. And, you know, the enemy will try and wipe you out. And he has done with me, because I'm feeling sorry for myself and thinking, you know, people let you down. You try and help people and all blah, blah, blah. But you see, the Lord tells you to do something, and it's up to the other person, their choice, what they do with it or how they act. And the same with me. I'm not always the best person. I do still have flesh. But it's the Lord in me that helps other people. The Lord in me that makes me better. The Lord in me that directs my paths. I can't do anything, only Jesus. So today, if you don't know Jesus or you're a backslider, today is the day to either come to Christ or return to him or renew your faith. All you need to do is say, Lord, forgive me, for I'm a sinner. Lord, I thank you that you died for me. I thank you that you bore my sin and that you rose again on the 3rd day. And you are the Son of God, the sinless Son of God. And I want to take up my cross and follow you. And I want to tell you that your life will never be the same again, even when we do wrong, because the Lord loves us and values our life. He understands everything. And if you're struggling, just call upon the name of the Lord. It's not all my complete testimony, because it would take forever. But it's just a small, tiny bit that the Lord calls you. He is the one who goes to you. You don't go to him. He goes to you. And you have a choice whether you follow him or not. But if you've backslid, it's not the end of the world. Just come back to the Lord today and he will help you and show you some amazing things. Time is so short. And I do want to tell you, even if you've been in prison, even if you've been a murderer, even if you've been a member of Hamas, the Lord loves you and values your life and wants to bring you into his kingdom, because we all are sinners before God. So anyway, that's from me. I don't feel exactly very well today. But I wanted to share that with you, because I know that often we get encouraged by people's testimonies. Anyway, bye.